Good day. This is Ken Demers for Psychic Holistic Spotlight. Good day. This is Ken Demers for Psychic Holistic Spotlight. And today we have Bill and Sherry, and we are going to interview Pat. I keep calling you Petrucci, but that's not
Mellman.
wrong. Pat Mellman. And she's an astrologer, amongst other things. But as in most astrologers, she's also accomplished in other art forms, tarot, numerology, and she's a medium. So I'm wondering how she merges all this together into something that she uses as a tool. Pat, how do you use it?
How do I use it? Well, oftentimes when I'm reading a chart for somebody, when they come in for a consultation, maybe halfway through or at different times I'll have a spirit pop in, and if I do, I just tell the client, one moment please. Now, of course, you ask permission. I ask the client if they would mind that their grandmother or mom or close loved one is coming through from the spirit side and would they like me to speak with them. And that's usually how the mediumistic portion comes through when I'm doing the chart reading.
Do they ever use astrology references?
Yes, I think Isabel, my teacher, is someone that helps me a lot. When I get stuck on something or I'm in a little bit of a quandary about some energy that I quite don't get, and Isabel's right there pointing it out, giving me, she was my teacher.
What was she?
Isabel Hickey was my astrology teacher.
Very famous.
Very famous, yes. Well known.
Yes, I knew her.
Did you know Isabel?
Yeah.
And she passed in 1980, unfortunately. But I studied with her for many years, and she was very spiritual. And I have a little story about her. I remember she's telling us all that she asked God, what should I do in life? What do you want me to do? And she heard that she should be an astrologer, and she said, oh, no, not that. Because it was the 1930s when she first started practicing, and it was very, looked down upon for her at that time. She was raised in a certain type of religious background, and her family
gypsy trade.
did not approve. Exactly.
Gypsy trade.
Exactly.
We were talking about sun signs earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about moon signs?
Absolutely. The moon in the chart is very, very important because the moon is our emotional nature. And so when you see one of the signs are always from Aries to Pisces, of course, and the moon well, it's not a planet, we call it a light. In astrology, we call it a light because the moon needs the sun to reflect its light. So we have sun, moon, there's a very strong connection between the sun being the character nature and the moon being the personality and emotional nature. So you can be a very strong, let's say Taurus, with that strong Taurian energy, and emotionally you maybe have a moon in Cancer, which would make you extremely sensitive and very caring and wanting to nurture everybody and take care of them and be very soft in the middle sort of energy. So the moon is extremely important. And it also shows where the sun in the birth chart will show the relationship of what your dad was like. The moon will show the relationship of the mother, what your mom's, how you saw it. Now, they might have been very different, but how you saw them, because it's really about our perception, isn't it? So the moon energy will show what your perception was of your mom, and the sun energy, your perception of your dad.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Mm-hmm.
Now, we have these books.
Yes.
What do you call this?
This is an ephemeris.
An ephemeris. And it's got tons and tons of information in it.
It does.
In detail.
In detail.
But it comes down to you interpreting it. And you're going to have a different interpretation than her. So how much...
Well, the ephemeris is always, it's really a map of the astronomical makeup, where the energy is, the planets are at any given time of any day since we started astronomy hundreds, thousands of years ago. So these charts will show us every day exactly where all the planetary energy is and where they are. The numbers all tell by degrees because the planets are from 0 to 29.59 degrees. So all of this really comes on to this. And ephemeris, for anybody that's interested in astrology and wants to know where the planets are during any day, you purchase an ephemeris, and you can get them through Amazon, actually, though you will find them to be expensive because they usually sell them in 50-year increments. Some bookstores do sell them in 10-year increments,
They're
which are a
online
little
too,
easier.
right?
They're online,
You can
yes.
just-
Yes, yep,
However you do it. I'm
Yep.
not an astrologer.
Yep.
Don't pretend to be. But I'm interested in your interpretation. How
Okay.
might it be different than Sherry's if she was looking at the exact same information?
the exact same, the birth chart. Well, I think the interpretation is really something that I intuit, maybe use my intuition with it as well. Of course, when you study astrology, you're going to have the basic, the sun is this, the moon is that, Mercury is this. Each planet has its own character or personality, shall we say. But the way that I interpret it and the way that Sherry does would probably depend on our own attitude and our own view of life, like it would with anything else. We might interpret it slightly different from that. But for me, I also use my psychic and my mediumistic skills when I'm interpreting the chart. And I always feel that each individual, as I said earlier, this is what the possibility of what could happen. You can always change it.
Free will.
Free will, absolutely, 100% correct.
Now, I know you're accomplished with tarot and astrology.
Yes.
Can you use a correlation between the two, same kind of information?
I think you're right, Ken. I think that when you do tarot, it's interesting, because I'm glad you asked that, because oftentimes I will do an astrology chart for somebody, and then the last 15 minutes or so I'll do tarot, and it really does match up with what I've already talked about, especially where futuristic things are coming to play. And that's how I see in the tarot what's coming up in the next 3 months or so in astrology. They match, yes. So that's just another modality. You're absolutely correct.
I find that interesting because this seems to be more steeped in specific numbers and graduates and angles.
Absolutely.
And the tarot is actually just a tool for the intuition to come through.
Uh-huh.
They're both tools.
They're both tools.
Yes, I realize that, but I'm just saying this is more specifically more
I think this may be
mathematical,
more.
and they're definitely both tools. I'm not
Right.
saying this is not a tool for intuition. It definitely is. I'm just saying that the tarot is more, it seems to be more
An intuitive tool.
More fixed.
more use with your mediumistic
Yeah.
skills and whatnot.
The tarot, I do think it does coincide with this in some regard, because I feel energy is energy, no matter how you
Right.
break it down.
Right.
So you can use tarot, you can use this,
Sure.
and of course mediums.
People read tea leaves. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's
Mediumistic stuff is a little different because we're merely interpreters of the spirit world. We shouldn't be putting our own
right.
Spin on
speak
it.
on
That's
it.
right.
We're
If
just
the-
interpreters. But this is mathematically calculated. So, but the tarot usually does coincide with it. It's amazing. It's shocking to me, but it does happen.
Do you use the fixed stars?
The fixed energy?
No, fixed stars.
Fixed stars, no, I do not, no. I do use, asteroids. I've introduced asteroids into my work recently.
What do they represent?
The particular asteroid that I use, which is Chiron, is actually the wounded healer. And so the Chiron energy shows us where we're wounded and how we can change ourselves to improve that by healing ourselves.
What about the north and south nodes?
I do use the north and south nodes as well. The south node is like where we've been in a past life.
First question, what is a node?
These are the nodes of the moon. I don't know exactly the technical terms for them, but I do
Okay,
know how.
that's close
But I
enough.
do know how you work them. So the south node is where we've been. So it's very comfortable energy. For example, in this transit chart today, the south node is 21 degrees of the sign of Aries. So if somebody was born with that, it would be very comfortable for them to kind of use their energy and want to be me first, me first, me first, and want to really be out there in terms of being acknowledged and an assertive type. And what they've come in this lifetime, if I were looking at their chart and I looked at the north node, because it's always the south node is in one sign and the opposite would be the north node, they'd come in with Libra and they'd want to find balance and to really consider the other rather than just themselves. So it's all about the other and balancing that. So south and north node of the moon are used all the time.
That's it.
And they're very interesting. In fact, it's easy sometimes for us to stay in that south node because it's where we've been, and it's very comfortable.
Well, that's what I was, one of the things I was going to ask you before. And it seems like now we're getting more into the spiritual aspects of this type of work. And I think
Right.
I'm a little more comfortable with bringing up past lives.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, the past lives are so relevant because if you are presented with a thought while you're doing a past life regression and you strike an emotional chord where you know that there's some truth to what you just
Right.
discovered,
Right.
how would you be able to use a tool like this to explore a past life?
I think yes, absolutely. I
Because some
believe so.
people have actually come up with the names and where the person lived, and
And
they
their
can go back
dates.
to the dates.
Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Right.
And I feel like, well, of course, we're progressing, hopefully, from one past life to the newest life,
Right.
that we've progressed. But I'm sure that some of the characteristics,
Right. Well, some of the
Come back
emotional
with us.
connections also, if we
Right.
haven't learned to deal with them in a past or a previous existence, that there's no guarantee that you've learned how to deal with it in this existence either.
exactly,
So, I mean, I could see where somebody would have a setback,
yes.
depending on who you may be with, you know. But I just find it interesting when you brought up the
Yeah.
before where you've been, the South Node.
South Node where you've been.
Right.
And so very easy to fall back into that energy, very easy to,
Will the mediumistic help you with that?
yes.
Okay. All right, so
That brings up the planets that are in what, regression?
Retrograde.
Retrograde,
Right,
okay? Like I have one planet that's stationary in the midheaven.
okay.
That
What
tell-
planet is that? Do you
Yep.
remember?
I'm thinking Neptune or something like that.
Oh,
And I've got 6 that are in retrograde.
You have 6 planets in your natal chart retrograde?
Yeah, something like that.
Wow. Well, I would say that you're learning lessons over again, Ken, from another.
Yeah, we do that.
The midheaven is a very important
But
place.
to me, that ties in with what Bill was talking about,
Yeah, the past life stuff.
with the past life stuff. I mean,
I mean, the way Isabel used to explain that this was like a snapshot of your destiny, and that we chose this, and we all know that we
Right.
came in to choose our life. So this is what you have. Here's your little. Everybody says there's no book. Here's your book. Here's what you came in with, and this is what you have to work with in this lifetime. Here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses. And when we do the transit, or where the energy is today, and apply it to the natal chart, we can say that the trend right now is that you have to tighten your belt financially, perhaps, if the planet Saturn was going through your second house, or maybe you're coming into a big job change with all kinds of money coming your way with Jupiter in your 10th house. You know, so there's really a lot. But basically, this is showing you where your strengths are and where there's some need for work,
So
for work in your chart.
when you're born, the
Yes.
instant you're born is a snapshot of the
Planets.
planets,
Yep.
whatever, in a chart,
Absolutely.
which is basically your potentials, your weaknesses,
Yep.
your strong points.
Right.
So people can look at a chart and tell what they should be doing, what they shouldn't do.
Yeah.
What, you know, not
Exactly.
should or
I-
shouldn't,
yeah, I know
but
what you mean.
free will comes in.
Yeah,
But
exactly. What the
decide what
potential
would be
is,
a
yeah.
better course of action
Right.
for them,
Right.
because that would be a strong point, and they can tell this by their charts.
Exactly, yes. You can tell the relationship that they have with, like, where they fit in the family dynamics. And a lot of times, people will feel very insecure about how they fit in with the siblings or the mom and dad and so forth. And so the chart will show that, what their role was in the family. And it also helps when you're counseling somebody with astrology to say, well, yes, this is something you came in to learn about. So you can grow from this. And our whole potential is really to grow and develop beyond what we came in with.
Now, like Bill was saying, if he's had a lot of past lives, how do you pick out one to talk about for his benefit?
I feel if he was regressed and he had a well, maybe he had a trauma in a past life, in like a recent past life where you had no control over something that had
Right.
happened to you. We could look at why you picked that, what the potential, and how it's come into this lifetime now.
How do you resolve the issue?
How do you resolve the issue?
And you can kind of pull that
You can
out
say
of a
this
chart?
is what, yeah. You can look at a chart and say, well, you have a lot of strength with a strong Saturn, which is known as the taskmaster, is really a beautiful energy of helping you to build strength, even though it's taskmaster. And there's usually roadblocks wherever Saturn is in your chart. Those roadblocks are going to make you stronger, stronger, and stronger, because when you have to get things handed to you, you don't work as hard or appreciate it as much, right? So a lot of times people will have a lot of what's called trine energy, which is the energy is 90 degrees and it's very conducive and comfortable. But when you have the square energy, that's where you have to strive to really struggle with stuff. And usually your life is much richer having had to struggle, even though it doesn't feel like it when you're in the struggle.
Okay. Just so that people have an opportunity to write this down multiple times, get your pencil. You had said that you like to go to a website?
Oh, yes, yeah.
If you could give that address now, and then
Absolutely.
towards the end of the show, I want to give it again.
Okay.
But so people can find it.
It's stariq.com, stariq.com, and it's very interesting.
What do they find there?
They will find any type of question they have on astrology. You can type in, Pluto, the planet Pluto. It'll give you a whole different articles that have been written by astrologers on Pluto. It will also give you, I think you can put your birth date, time, and place in there, and they'll do your chart for you and give you daily updates. But it has so much information. It's a wealth of information, so you don't have to really. There is a magazine called Mountain Astrologer, which is really good. It's the astrologer's magazine of astrology, and it has a lot of articles too.
If
But
somebody's getting started in this,
yes,
what do they do? They take a class with a person, or they go online, or
they
what?
take a class with me. No. One of the things I would suggest you do.
You're too far down on the Cape.
The first thing I would suggest you do is buy Isabel Hickey's book, and it's called Astrology: A Cosmic Science. And it is wonderful. And the reason I like Isabel's for students is that she really starts at the very beginning, and she shows you how everything fits together. And then she goes through the houses and the planets and the signs. It's very informative. It's very easy to understand. She did it in a really very simple way so that anybody can understand
The
astrology.
name again?
It's Isabel Hickey, Hickey, and it's Astrology: A Cosmic Science. And I know Amazon has it because I've sent students there for it. Astrology: A Cosmic Science.
Okay.
Wonderful book.
And I understand you're going to be teaching astrology down the Wigwam this summer.
I am.
Which is I was surprised when I heard that, because I
month of
think of
June.
you as being a medium down the Wigwam.
I'm doing well. I was astrology first, and it's always my love.
Really?
I would like to go back to what you had said before concerning the mediumship coming in and being a tool,
Right.
especially while you're giving a reading.
Right.
The mediumship, does that pull in past like family members, or does it open up communication with the guides or angels for that person?
For me, as a spiritualist, we want to give evidence, the continuity of life. So the evidence that we give usually is from someone, a living person, a person that was living, that the sitter, the person that's getting the information, can understand.
Okay.
So even though we believe in guides and angels, we don't bring them through in readings
Okay,
because it wouldn't prove the continuity of life.
okay. Well, that's a very good answer. Huh?
Yeah. But he had lifetimes, past lives with angels. So
Hey, even this
In
time.
this lifetime, would you recognize? See,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've had the hand of God work with me. It's
Wonderful.
amazing. Oh, it's something that
Wonderful.
you can't deny
right.
when it happens.
But typically, for my training as a spiritualist, we don't give angels or guides. Just because most
Well,
of
that's
the time,
fine. That's
you know,
why I
yeah,
asked,
exactly.
because there's so many different people that use different tools.
Exactly.
And,
you're all
and each
wonderful.
one of them is valid.
Absolutely.
Okay, but I think it's great the way
100%.
that you're able to pull in, and I understand the reason why, and it
Yeah.
makes concrete sense.
Julie, you have your gifts too. Do you use astrology at all in this? Or similar?
Well, when you work with people, you get to know the signs, and then you get to know the traits of the signs. So that's really the extent of
Yeah.
my astrology. Is like when a Taurus comes in, I'm like, okay, yep, all right, you're a little stubborn, you know. Or ear signs, I find, tend to think themselves out of a thought. They get because it's mental, as you
Mental,
were
right,
saying,
yeah.
because it's ear. They can think themselves out of thought. I had a question. Now, so this. A natal chart is a snapshot of when you're born. What else can the astrology be used for as a tool to help someone in their life?
It can be used for vocational, and really pinpoint what vocations are best for you. That's one thing. Financial help, really good with financial. There are some astrologers that just do financial counseling with astrology, yes.
The lady that started this show, June Finan, she used to, her specialty was love relationships.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, she
Composite.
did a lot of stuff. And then there was another lady that came on the show once in a while, many years ago, was business. That's all she did, was she dealt
Just
with
business,
businessmen.
yep. And you can take two charts together and make a composite chart. So you want to compare the charts for a love relationship to see if they're compatible. Then you take the two charts together, and it's called a composite. You put the two charts together and make a one, so it tells you what they're like together as a couple,
Ah,
which is very interesting.
yes.
Very, very interesting.
So if we have a young couple and she's a little apprehensive, she should get her significant
chart
guy's
done,
chart
yeah,
and his
absolutely.
chart done.
Yes.
She can probably do this on the computer.
Yeah,
And then we find some local astrologer and put the two together.
put the two together and find out if
It's going to work.
it's going to work or not.
Where does free will come into that?
Absent free will is always
Present.
present and always operating in every. All we do is give the information, and it's up to the person how they use it.
That's right.
We just try to give them what, hurdles may be in the way or what successes are coming. When you have a Jupiter, for example, Jupiter is a planet of expansion. Sagittarian's ruler, by the way. And when you have Jupiter energy around, it's usually expanding wherever. If you're a Cancer, for example, Leo's coming into it, actually. Jupiter's going to be in the sign of Leo for the next year. So Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries should look for abundance, success, things falling into place. It's that really good energy. It's called the guardian angel energy.
So if there's a project that I am looking to initiate and follow through with, you're saying this actually would be a good time to focus on?
After July 10th, Jupiter will enter the sign of Leo. So Leo, Aries, and Sagittarians can look forward to abundance and things falling into place. But then, of course, you look at the birth chart and look at which house or which area of your life was more. But just for your sun sign in general, there'll be expansion.
Okay,
A very good time.
good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This looks like a chart in the future for September.
Yes, I did look
And
at that.
I see a lot of triangles. If I'm looking at that, I see a lot of
Yep.
triangles. And that's a shift from today, which is a lot of squares.
Right. Thankfully.
Oh.
Thankfully, we're shifting to triangles. Because
So-
we have had a lot of friction over the last
Turn it around so
few
we can see
months.
what you're talking about. Takes them a while to
Get it.
zoom in on it.
zoom in.
They can't.
So the one that Ken is holding is the one that's based a lot of squares, and the one
Yes.
that
No,
you're
that's good. I didn't
holding
realize you had
Right.
it.
actually
Yeah, all
has
the
a lot
red,
of
yes.
triangles, which is what you
And this
picked
is
up on.
the triangles are the trines, and the trine energy means things are easy, gentle, adaptable,
Nice.
flowing. So we
We
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah.
A lot more harmonious
well,
than the friction of the
The
square.
friction of it. But the square is always going to give
Solid.
you something important. Because through that friction, you're going to learn something of value.
Well, this thing also with sacred geometry, I mean, the
Yes.
square is a good, solid base.
Yeah.
And the nice
Good
thing about the
foundation.
triangles is that, they can morph, and instead of just 120 isosceles, you have varying degrees where they.
Right.
So that is very interesting.
Now,
It is.
going along with what Bill was talking about,
Yes.
if we've got a square, would that be like something for learning? experience, or is it?
I believe that's true. A square is when, for example, let's give an example of like a Taurus and Leo. The Taurus energy and the Leo energy are square to each other. And so those two energies are both going to want to be in charge, want to be in control, want it done their way. But the beauty of it is that through those, say you have a moon in Taurus with Saturn Leo squaring it. So it's saying to me, the Saturn energy is asking the moon to kind of readjust their feeling nature. You know what I'm saying? So there's always going to be an adjustment, but it's always going to be a lesson of something very important. So even though the squares, when you're born with squares in your chart, there are difficulties, you're always going to really come out of it better with a lot of strength and a lot of, when you work hard for something, it's always better than getting it handed to you. So Isabel always used to say, if you have too many trines in your life, you're going to be lazy, and you're not going to, you're not going to appreciate things as much as when you have to work for them and struggle for things. So squares sometimes can be a struggle for us.
But it helps to give us tools.
It helps, definitely.
I was just saying, although it's nice to get a gift every now and then.
Exactly. And we do get, when we have the transits going around our natal chart, we know that we're going to get positives, we're going to get struggle, we're going to get the whole package. And I think that's what makes variety is the spice of life.
Let me ask you, the first thing I read in my paper every day,
Sure,
my
horoscope.
funnies and the astrology column.
Yeah.
So we have Capricorns.
Yep. I read mine every day, too.
What does that actually tell me?
It tells you what about your sun sign. So basically, it talks about your basic characteristic stuff. It does work. I mean, if you look at it, it'll say you're going to have this kind of day, that kind of day. But it's really only talking about the sun. It's not talking about your. So it's kind of like
1/12 of the information.
1/12 of exactly. Because it can say great things or.
So should I bother reading it?
I read mine every day.
So I should bother.
You bother with it. It's fun.
Yeah.
For nothing else, it's a lot of fun.
To use astrology effectively for the average person, it's because all the planets are shifting daily.
Right.
How do they use it effectively? They would almost have to, I don't know, if they had,
Well,
they'd
if they
almost
had-
have to consult somebody daily.
If they
or
had their own
weekly or
birth
monthly.
chart, they could, and they knew where the planets were, and had a little bit of information, they could really look at, because the trends you want to really look at are the long ones, like Uranus, 7 years, Neptune, 14 years, Pluto, 12 to 30 years. Those are going to make a longer impact than the fast-moving energy.
We used to have an astrologer come on the show 4 times a year, and she would do weather reports.
Oh, and tell what the astrological
And
weather
she was
is going to
pretty
be.
close.
Yeah.
She was pretty close.
Yep.
I mean, she was right there. We're just about out of time. Is there something that you would like to enlighten the world to?
Well, I think, go ahead. I was just going to say, now might be a good time actually to get that website that you mentioned before.
Oh, again,
Yeah.
Okay. stariq.com.
Okay.
it's
Okay.
pretty simple to remember, actually.
stariq.com. Wonderful website. Everyone that's watching will really enjoy it.
And that'll tell people what?
They'll get all kinds of information about anything astrological. If they want to start learning astrology, that's a good place to go. There's articles on every single subject.
And to pick up on what Ken just asked, what quick tidbit would you throw out there for the general population to remember about astrology?
That astrology is a tool to help you, but you still should go with your internal messenger, your internal guidance. Because no matter what's on the outside, it's really about what's on the inside.
So
Well said.
meditation and prayer and things like that are still things
meditation.
that...
Absolutely. This is just a little helpful guide, but definly meditation.
Someday I should try that.
Yeah. What?
Meditation.
You were just doing that before, Ken.
Maybe not.
It's
I
always
realize
nice to
well.
remind
Yes.
people to trust their gut.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
we're
Every time.
rapidly closing in on the end of the show. This is Ken Demers for Psychic Holistic Spotlight. We've had Bill Hanna, Sherry
Kachanis.
Kachana, I got to remember that one,
Kachanis.
and Pat Mellman, astrologer, a medium, very neat lady who graced us today to hopefully light somebody's fire so that they can desire to have an education in astrology. That's all we're trying to do, is to tell you where to go. Good night, and thank you for hopefully watching. Bye.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Well,
And I think we're
Patricia,
just about out
Thank
of
you
time.
very much for sharing your intuition. I
Thank
think
you.
that's
Thank you so much
the
for
way you're
having
able
me.
to pull that in and show how other tools can be brought together through
Yeah.
intuition.